So many times we lose a loved one, friend, family, whatever, and it's a great loss to us because we feel as if that person has left us forever. And it sometimes affects us to the lower levels of our being. And I know it's done that to me on one special occasion. But I want you to know that it's not always that that person has gone forever. Today we're going to be talking about that and so much more. So if you have lost someone, if you're scared or in the midst of it happening to you, stay tuned and start listening because today we're going to have a great conversation. And although sometimes people will say they don't want to talk about it, you know what? These are things that we need to talk about. Thank you for joining us today on Let's Get Real. And we're going to get real with our guest today, who is, you're in for a real treat. I love her, and she is just the really greatest soul that I have ever met. My name is Glenda Kroll, and I'm coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And my sidekick here, my lady,
Hey
is.
everyone, I am here. I'm Nicole Harvick. I got to tell you, I'm coming from South Carolina, and it is hot today. And I woke up on July 1st. This is what, the third? And Glenda, we only have 6 months left in the year. And I'm sitting here and I kind of got a little bit panicked. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus. I got a lot of things up here I'm looking at that I have to get done. So, it's pretty amazing. But I'm always glad to be here on Wednesday. We always have an amazing guest, and today is no exception. And this lovely gal has been on before, but her life has changed. There have been transitions, and she is the perfect person to join us today. She is a producer of podcasts, of ads, of reels, and of photos. She's a TV host of the Grief Grantor, and that's going to play in hugely as to what she talks about. She's also a Grief Grantor facilitator. So she's kind of had a paradigm shift in the last couple years. I've been keeping in touch with her a lot, and she is so wise beyond her years. And I want to bring to the stage Portia Booker.
Yay!
Hello.
Hello, Portia. Thank you for joining us today. What a treat we're in for.
Hello, first and foremost, thank you so much, Glenda and Nicole, for having me back. I know the last time that I was on was shortly after my mom's transition back in 2022. And we are actually coming up on the second transition anniversary of my mom this coming Sunday, July 7th. So I'm excited to be here. Whatever I can do to help your audience to shift their perspective and reframe their grief journey, I'm all ears, I'm all open.
Yeah. And I love the part, Portia, that you're not afraid to come on and to speak and to generate wisdom for our audience, because it'll be what, 2 years on Saturday that your mom has passed?
Sunday the 7th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for being brave enough to show up today.
I have to be honest, Nicole, I can always tell when the anniversaries are, if you want to call it, driving into the backyard, if you want to call it, because I have to do a lot of self-care. I feel as though I'm breathing through a straw throughout the day. I feel really tired and fatigued. My thoughts are kind of every which where, like a rainbow colored fishbowl. And at first I couldn't recognize it the first year after my mom transitioned. It felt as though I was still what I like to call in a fog, where the permanence hadn't settled in yet. And this year, I know that this is the new transition or transformation of my life. And so I've been really, as I mentioned to both of you before we jumped on this conversation, I had to do a meditation. I've done 3 meditations today because I recognize I need more TLC at this time to give myself that grace, to give myself compassion. And what does that really look like? I think a lot of times we forget in grief the power of rest. Rest is essential when we're grieving. We're so accustomed to being on the go, go, go. I love to call it the McDonald's, analogy, right? Because Those of us who love McDonald's, I don't eat that stuff, but think about it. You go to McDonald's and you wait in line to get whatever meal you want, and it's there in 10 minutes. Grief don't work like that.
Mm.
Grief does not work in that capacity. Grief is a cyclical, seasonal event that comes around during certain periods of our life, during certain times of our life. But the thing of it is, we haven't learned as a society to give ourselves permission to grieve. And that's something that I do with all of my clients. Like, I'm truly grateful for all the clients who I have. Shout out to all of you because I see where they're at, right? I see where their grief is and how can we take that grief and move it, right? It doesn't have to stay there. You don't have to stay stuck.
It, what you're saying is so important for people to really understand and recognize. It's like the ocean; it goes in and out. At the time when we are grieving, and there's points where you sort of feel okay. You get it, but at the early on stage when somebody has transitioned, you're you sort of live in a world of bewilderment.
Mhm.
And then sometimes it comes up to you, like the wave comes into shore and it hits you, and you sometimes start crying and you can't stop it. And then for a lot of people, they start knocking themselves down after maybe a week or so, that thinking that they shouldn't feel this way anymore. But that's not true, and that's really not how you handle the grief. So let's talk about what happens first of all, as you're waiting, because I know when one of my hardest times ever in my life is with my dad when he passed away. For 2 years he battled cancer, and especially in the last 6 months before his death, we knew it was coming. And, we knew through that time, and I kept on telling myself, but when I got hit by it after he passed, I was like knocked down. And it took me a long time to get through that. And it was actually my son, as a very little boy, maybe about 3. And he would say, because every time he would talk about my dad, tears would come flowing down my face. And he says, "Why don't you do what I do?" And I said, "What do you do, sweetheart?" "Oh, I just pretend he's here and I talk to him." And out of the mouths of babes, right? And but what it is, it's a time in life when life feels like it could be over.
100%, Glenda. I mean, I love that your son said that to you because a lot of times that's the problem with grief. People want to regurgitate these platitudes. And I'm somebody who's a firm believer. It's not exactly what you say, it's about how you say it. It's about how you deliver it to people, right? Because I remember after my mom transitioned, I think I brought this up before, that a lot of people were telling me, "Oh, Portia, your mom's gone. It's a great loss. You'll never get over it." All of this nonsense. And I'm like, wait a minute. Hold the front door wide open and let all the feral cats in. You mean to tell me that this is your response to somebody who has experienced a loss, yet alone? Is this the way that you are projecting your grief onto me, your unresolved grief?
Mhm.
Right.
Right. And for me, what has really helped me was the very initial, Glenda, like when you brought up about the anticipatory grief of your dad slowly declining, right?
Yeah.
I still remember to this day holding my mom's hand when I had to give her permission to go because she wouldn't. She would not go. I said, "Mommy, I got it." And she said, "Okay, darling." I said, "Thank you, mommy, for being my cheerleader. Thank you for keeping your foot up my butt to get me to where I was, even though it was hard." But at the same time, I wouldn't want to call anybody else my mother but you. And she
Nice.
said to me, "Portia, I love you." I'm like, "Mommy, go. Just go. I got it." And I think about how grateful I am to have had that intimate moment with her. Like, there's so much beauty. Like, we talk about when people come into the world, but we don't always talk about the beauty of when somebody transitions from this world. Because I'm forever grateful that I have that last conversation with my mom recorded on my phone. And
Wow.
even though sometimes I can't listen to it, but when I have listened to it, it has brought me comfort to hear her voice again. And my mom's been a guest on my show a couple of times, not the Grief Grantor, but my previous show, Grew with Portia. And so I think a lot of times when we're in grief, we have to remember that their love is still with us. Why are we burying their love? When I think all grief has given us the opportunity to do is to figure out, how do I redirect that love energy that I was putting into a person, a job, a relationship, right, into the previous version of myself? How do I take that love energy and redirect it back to me? What does that look like? Does it mean going back to drawing the little doodles that I used to do as a 6-year old? Does it look like picking up that instrument that I tried to perfect at the age of 15? What does that really look like? I think grief really opens us up to curiosity. And I think a lot of people forget that because we're so engrossed in the emotions, right? Glenda, you talked about crying. Why do we stifle our emotions, right? In the Bible, the shortest verse is Jesus wept. So why are we not allowing ourselves to cry? Those tears is your love, right? The deeper the love, the heavier the grief. So I think we need
Absolutely.
to reframe the way that we go about our grief. Remember that this person was a part of our journey for a reason, and their love is not gone. It's not gone.
Well, and I agree with you that right there. I also look at it that the more you grieve and the harder it feels, the more you know how much you cared and loved that person. And I have always said that even to my children that if I go when I go, because I talk about it, it's no big deal. Like it's going to happen to all of us. But when I go, if you don't feel my absence or my departure, then we didn't have a great relationship. So it's okay to feel sad when the time is that I go, and knowing that, I hate to tell you, but, I'm still going to be around, like just watch how pennies or coin, we don't even have pennies anymore, but coins might appear on yourself. Am I aging myself? Oh, no. Um,
We still have pennies here, Glenda, in
oh,
the
we don't.
US. Yeah,
Okay.
so we totally resonate with that.
So can you send me a few pennies? Because we don't have them anymore here in
Hmm.
Canada. We round up things. But, I'm going to be around. Like, I feel my father's presence and my mom's at times. So you're going to feel it. But, how sad it would be if I left and you didn't feel it and you didn't cry. And then, like, shit, I did the horrible job as a mother, not crying because I'm left you. So
And I
it's true.
and I think to your point, Glenda, like when it comes to grief and us, we're all gonna transition
Right.
at some point. We all are. I mean, Nicole, you brought up in the beginning, there's only what, 6 months left in 2024. Like, where did the year go? In my mind, I'm still on May 1st, and we're
Yeah,
already
no.
on July 3rd.
And it
So
goes faster every year. It really does. Time has sped up. It's crazy.
yeah. And I think when it comes to time in general, when it comes to grief, time has no construct anymore. Like I can tell you from after my mom transitioned, my definition of time has shifted where I don't look at, oh, I have to use Saturday and Sunday as my break day. Nope. You know what? If I'm having a hard week, Wednesday and Thursday are going to be my Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Point
Yeah.
blank,
Yeah, it's
right?
true.
Why continue to put yourself in a prison? And I think grief really, that earthquake in our life opens us up to really restart and give us choice on how we do that. Because I think a lot of people forget that we have choice. You get to choose how you go about your grief journey. If you want to be in the Wallace bed where you cry all day, fine. Maybe your body needs that. Maybe you haven't cried in so long and all of that emotions are boiling up and you got to let them out. Or maybe you want to isolate. If you want to isolate, that's okay. I just encourage people to always have kind of what I like to call a grief SOP, right? Know who your key people are to reach out to that will comfort you in the way you need them to. Because I think a lot of times we go to people for support and they're not able to meet us in that capacity. They can meet us for a different level of support, but not necessarily the one that we're needing. The other thing is teaching people how to support us. One of the biggest things that I learned when my mom transitioned was sometimes I couldn't eat. I couldn't think about making a meal. Y'all know I'm a bomb cook. I can make some food in the kitchen. Nicole, you know I cook
I
all the
watch.
time.
Yep.
But I remember, like, in the interim, I couldn't think about cooking. So I would text my friends, hey, if they reached out, Portia, checking in on you, do you need anything? Can you just buy me a meal? Whether it's from Panera or Applebee's, wherever, can you just buy me a meal because I'm struggling today?
Yeah.
Another
And that,
thing.
yeah, that is so important that you're talking about the friend support. I want to bring this up because I
Mhm.
had a friend when I had my stillbirth, and she had lost like 6 babies. She wasn't full term, but she could not hold those babies. And when I lost mine, she came to me and said, she says, I know everything not to say. She says, I know everything not to say. She goes, I just want you to know that when you're ready, I'm here to listen. And to me, that was one of the most important things anyone ever said to me, because I didn't want people saying, there's a better plan, there's a better place, that, da da. No, my arms would be a really good place for my baby because I've proven it with my first one. And you know what? It took me a while, but when the time was right, I called her and she just listened. And sometimes that's all a person needs.
Beautiful. It's true. A lot of people look to fix things, and the whole thing about in life is you have to learn that you don't need to fix anything. You
Right.
just need to give somebody your space. Just be there, and just let them know you're there to listen, and that's it. And you don't need anything more.
Right. Right.
So I love the fact that, and to you, Portia, of telling people what you actually needed. Because there's times when things happen in our lives, we don't know what we need. But when you know, to be able to talk it out and say, you know what, this is what I need, that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? They asked, why wouldn't you tell them? Why wouldn't you let them know? And if that's the capacity they are there to help him, let them do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, oh, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. We all need something, especially at an emotional time like that. Even if we're not crying, even if we're trying to hold things in, we have a huge need for certain things. And I'm with you. I couldn't eat for a week, I
Yeah.
could not eat for a week.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard, right? It's hard to ask for help when you, especially when you're the one who does it all. Oh,
Right.
trust me, I think that was something that I learned in my grief journey, was to ask for help, that it was okay to ask for help, because I tried to do it all, y'all. Like, even, after my mom transitioned and we're trying to make all the phone calls to all the family, the distant friends. I even had to tell a couple people on my Facebook that they made posts, and I'm glad that it was a small group of them. I said, take it down. I said, do not post anything until I tell you it's okay, because we're still sharing with family members who don't know yet, immediate family that we haven't been able to get a hold of, and sometimes it's hard. I'm grateful to my brother who was able to step in and make some of those phone calls while I navigated some other bigger things. So it's okay to ask for help, and it truly shows strength. The other thing when it comes to grief that a lot of us tend to forget too is to always take care of ourselves, because it's so easy to get so wrapped up in, oh, I have to plan the funeral, I have to make all these phone calls. Like, you almost need an assistant with you during that time. And the other thing, Nicole and Glenda, I want to go back to this about support, because a lot of people, I think they mean well. Like, I'm glad that you had that person, Nicole, who just listened, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people mean well, but I think what really irks my nerves is when people say, I'm here if you need me. But then when I reach out to you, you're nowhere to be found,
Yeah.
or it's not genuine. Like, don't tell me that you have the capacity to support me, or you're saying this to comfort me when really it's just a regurgitated scotch tape special approach instead of actually being there for me.
I agree. I agree. And that's like a common response. And unfortunately, it's like, look at me. I'm going to tell her I'm there to help. Or, it's, I've heard that as well. And, but the bottom line was they didn't know what to do, how to act, or what to say. So they were not there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with grief, realistically. They're uncomfortable with death. Like, I've seen so many different people on my Facebook in the last couple of weeks who've experienced transitions of parents, pets, kids. And I'm reaching out to you. I'm putting in your DMs. Hey, I'm sending you my love. I may not always comment on the post, but I'm reaching out to you directly to let you know that I'm here. If you
And then,
need somebody to listen to, if you need somebody to talk to, even if you just need me to just come over and sit with you,
yeah.
I'll do it.
So we have one of our viewers today, Mr. Whiskey. We loved him.
Oh, yeah. I,
Who who's saying truly in this day and age, almost everything is posted online, seemingly right away without permission. There's such an awful lack of respect and privacy nowadays.
I,
Well,
I agree with that. I think we all agree with that. And
thank
it's more of a look at me thing. It's not about the person. It's
well,
about,
hello. That's what I was just about to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I've had too many times in my life where people love to jump on the bandwagon so they can tell everybody else, well, I've done this and I've done that. We got to get to the point where if somebody reaches out to you, you don't need to tell everybody what you've done. Like news alert, long as you've connected with the person who's been affected, that's all that matters. Drop it. End of sentence. And to post
yeah,
online, sometimes there's got to be a bit of privacy in there.
And it
absolutely.
makes you
And it should
wonder,
be at
like,
that person's discretion, not at
Right.
the one posting discretion.
Bingo. Yeah.
it makes you wonder too the actual integrity,
Intent. Yeah.
intention,
Right.
integrity. Are you really doing this to help me, or is this really, oh, look at what I did? Macho, macho man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. I agree 100%, Portia.
So
100%.
let's go back a stage
mhm.
because like I'm not the only one. I've lived through it twice in my life with my mother and my father, of watching people that are going down in their own lives. You can see it happening, and let's talk about how we can deal with that within ourselves, because that's a huge transition to begin with, of coming to the understanding that that person who you love is going to be transitioning, and how we can go about it. Can we get some thoughts on that, Portia?
I'm gonna be honest, Glenda. It's a hard pill to swallow. It definitely is, and it takes time. The one thing that really helped me, especially because the first time I came on your show, this was even before my dad transitioned. So
Yeah.
you figure my dad transitioned 9 months after my mom. And so I think because I went through the heaviest of the grief with my dad still hurt me because of all the things I didn't get to say.
Yeah.
And, his absence taught me how to be present. So I would say what really helped me was a gratitude journal. That has been my number one rock. Even before my mom transitioned, I started my gratitude practice where I would write every day what I was grateful for. It started with simple things like the sunshine or, making a sale. And then it got more specific to different people who came into my life on that day or different conversations. I mean, even heck, even my debt, even going into debt became part of my gratitude routine because I'm a firm believer that when gratitude exists, nothing is truly lost. And so, what I encourage our audience to do is try gratitude practice. Number one. Number two, identify that support system because you need that. You need that when you're grieving. And also identify who not to go to because there's a lot of people who will babysit your feelings for their own selfish reasons, but really they're not there to really console you in the way that you need. The
I love.
other thing, the other thing that really helped me, get out of town. If you can't get out of town, even if you take a road trip to 2 or 3 hours away. And the reason why I encourage that, because I remember not too many people know this story, but I tried to run away. After my mom transitioned, I tried to drive my car across town. And mind you, I got an ancient car. My car is 12 years old, 190,000 miles still going. And I drove to this place called Park Isles, Pennsylvania. So I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, for those of you who don't know. And on my drive there, because I had held in so much of my emotions, the anger, the fear, as I was driving, I was crying profusely,
Oh,
crying. I had to pull my car over because it was coming out so much. Like when I tell y'all the snot was so thick, I could have towed my car to Erie. Yeah, it was just the yeah, but I needed that because I felt so much better. And sometimes we do. So I encourage everybody, let it out, cry it out, punch it out in the pillow, get those emotions out of you. Don't hold them in because the longer you hold them in, the more it hurts you.
And
The-
I love the fact of finding a place to go that even if you know of a place that brings you comfort, that brings you solace, it's really important if you can to go to that place whenever the time is right for you. Like there is no right or wrong time.
yeah.
So it can be after the fact, and that's exactly what I had to do. Yet I had a friend who, how she was actually, our friendship actually ended on the time because I came back and she was so angry with me that I didn't tell her I was leaving town because I just picked up and took off with my kids, and my family knew where I was. But, again, people look for their own selfish reasons, right? Of when they look to you,
Mm-hmm.
it was what it's doing for them. So I love that. And so as you transition, or yes, sorry, I'm not, as you moved out of town for your own sake, for your own way, and gave out, because the more we hold in, the unhealthier it is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find solace in that time that you spent on your own?
Yeah, I only went for the day. It was like a 2.5 hour drive from where I am. And during that drive I went to this cool lighthouse. Coolest lighthouse, and it was in this park. Beautiful park. And it was a beautiful day in November. It was like 60, 70 degrees. So it wasn't super cold. I could walk outside with just jeans and a t-shirt on, and there was just something powerful about being by that water. Even though it was the same Lake Erie that I'm used to seeing, but it was just something different about connecting with that piece of nature that's not directly in my backyard.
Yeah.
You know, I found, because I took my journal and I wrote. I just sat at like a bench and just listened to the water, listened to the different kids going through on their bikes and their skateboards. There was a guy, I'll never forget it, short story. This guy, I give him dad of the year, whoever he is. He had 3 daughters, okay? He had one on the front of his bike. He had another one on his back, and then the other one was on like the other external part of the bike where they had to pedal. I said, he gets that. Oh, and there was a fourth one. I forgot. The fourth one was in between him and the one on the handlebars on rollerblades. It was the funnest, coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, you get dad of the year.
oh my gosh! I guarantee you, the mother would have died. She she'd be like, and if she did, they're probably divorced. But yeah,
They all had on helmets, knock on wood,
okay,
because I, I,
okay.
I was a little like,
Yeah,
that looks
right.
a little unsafe, but I mean, they're with dad. Dad pulls all types of kooky, crazy town stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So you just never know.
absolutely.
but
That's
I
fun.
needed that. I definitely needed that, and I just encourage that. I encourage that. Get out of town, even if it's for a little bit, and then I'll be honest with this too. Shut off your phone sometimes because social media can really be too much when you're going through grief as well. And I want to add this in here too, because as we're coming up on my mom's transition anniversary, one thing that I make a point to do on both of my parents' birthdays and their transition anniversaries is I celebrate them. So this past year for my mom's birthday, we went to Red Lobster, me and my brother, and we had her favorite meal. I was going to get her favorite drink, but I didn't feel like drinking. But, that was something that we did. This Sunday, I'm debating on if I want to buy a cake, put a couple of candles on it and blow it out, and then also go to the lake and do a small balloon release. Because
Oh,
that honors her, and I never want to forget her, the memories that we had, the lessons that I've learned from her. Obviously, her looks, because I look just like her and I act like her. So, I want to always preserve that. And I encourage people to do that. And I've also designated those days as holidays for me, where I reassess my goals for the year on those particular days, including my birthday.
I love that.
nice.
That's beautiful. It's such an important fact of honoring somebody on that day.
Yeah.
It shows what they have what they've meant to you, and bringing them back in. But I also, do you feel your mother's presence or your father's presence around you?
Yeah, both of them were unique in their own way. My mom was the educator and my dad was the entertainer, and I have both of their talents. And, when I think about the different times that I spent with both of them, even up until their last moments here, I'm grateful that I had the time that I did with them, being an adult and being able to hold my own. I think about different people who did not have that with both of their parents and they're young and being raised by step parents or, other relatives. You know, sometimes I get sad sometimes when I see, because I want to talk about this too, Glenn and Nicole, about honoring my emotions, being aware of certain life experiences that will look different for me because I don't have my parents. Like, for example, the day I get married, neither one of my parents will not walk me down the aisle,
Yeah.
right? If I decide to have kids, my mom won't be there to hold her grandkid. The same thing with my dad. And so I've already thought about those things. And one thing that I'm glad that I've kind of already been proactive with is kind of already asking different people to be that support for me because I know it might be hard for me. And
Right.
that's okay, but I'm glad that I'm aware of it and that I have people who are in place to embrace me with love.
So important.
Yeah, and I can honestly say, last summer, we're coming up to a year now, where my daughter got married, and where I walked her down the aisle because my kids have no grandparents anymore, and their father's also gone. And it was such a surreal moment because I had my dad when I got married, and for some reason he just was shining over me all through the entire time of preparing the wedding, but especially that day of being there. And he was such an integral part of my life, of me being who I am today. So it's, but recognize it. And it was kind of a bittersweet, sad and grateful at the same time, but, of not having him there. So it's something that, instead of, feeling that, hold on to that feeling and showing how grateful that you are that you have that moment in you. Because we need to feel that, and especially as a parent, of the most important thing we do in our lives is when we have children, is to give them that time where they know our presence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing I can say, Glenda and Nicole, is that I get different signs from my parents, and they always let me know that they're close by. Like my mom has come to see me 3 times in a dream in my meditations. My dad, I've had different butterflies come through. I mean, the tattoo I have on my arm from my mom. I've had so many different signs from both of them. And I mean, some people might look at me like I'm crazy, but the way that I look at it is that's their unique love communication with me. It's not going to
Absolutely.
make sense to you because they weren't your parents, they were mine.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer, Glenda, like what you brought about the pennies thing, like the pennies or the dimes, or because a few times I have so many different stories from when I've been walking around the block. I walk the same route every day with my dog, Mr. Fletcher. You guys know my little furry butt companion who's spoiled. I mean, I've walked these same paths with or without him. And on the times that I've walked by myself, I could just be outside with him 10 minutes before. And then all of a sudden I go back out for some reason and I find $5 on the ground, 2 $1 bills. The list goes on of things that I find, but it's interesting because a lot of times I ask for a sign of something from my parents, and then it comes about in some way. So I really want to encourage our listeners and audience today to be open.
Right.
Write a letter to that loved one who transitioned. Even if it's a pet, write a letter to yourself, the old version of yourself.
Yes.
And ask for guidance. Because if you're feeling stuck, you don't have to be there. You don't have to be stuck. They don't want you to be stuck. They want you to keep going with your life. Honor, right? Honor where you are emotionally. If you're feeling angry, that's okay. If you're feeling sad, depressed, that's okay. That's all okay. It's all normal. There's nothing wrong with you. I just encourage people to seek that support. Understand that this person meant something to you.
Yes. And they want to help. They want to help. And it's a universal law that they can only help when you ask, because we're a planet of free will. You ask, they will come in, they will guide, they will help. And I'm always calling in. I need all the help I can get. So I'm always calling it. Come on now. and it, you will, if you look, you have to be aware that there will always be signs.
Yeah. And it's unique to you, whether it's numbers, feathers. I mean, Nicole, you know about my lottery ticket story about finding 30 something lottery tickets in my front yard.
That was ridiculous. Wow. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
And yeah, I mean, so Glenda, this was a couple days in a row. Okay. I go outside in my front yard because I'm cleaning up, because I do the yard work. I love doing the lawn. I love clipping the hedges. That's like my thinking time.
Yeah.
So I go out in the front yard and I find a lottery ticket. I'm like, okay. So I pick it up and look at the numbers. The numbers say 1111 on the first one. I said, okay, all right. So then I go out of the yard and I see a bunch more. So I just start picking them up. The next one, 111. The next one, 1111. Wow. The next one, 333. The next one, 3333. And so I pick them all up and I'm looking at them. I run in the house. I'm like, Julian, that's my brother. I said, Julian, look at this. So my brother looks at him and he's even confused. And he's like, Portia, you should play it. Because my father was lucky. My father had like this luck where he would always win games, and he showed me, and I was like, I'm going to wait on it. Well, then the very next day, I go back outside again. And across the street, I see a bunch of lottery tickets. I'm like, okay. So I pick them up. The first number I see is 9991. Wow. And I see another one that says 81818. And that number is already special in my life. 818 and 919 are 2 special numbers for me. 2 combinations. And that's what I kept finding. And then the third day. Now, mind you, I thought I picked up all the tickets, y'all. I thought I did. I go down the street, look on the ground, and there's a whole wad of them. pick them up. One of them says 4113 91818. I mean, I was like, okay. And I have them all upstairs. I literally wrote the dates because the dates are 311 that I found them. 311, 312, and 313 are the days
That's
that I found
crazy.
them. And when you add all of them up together, the number sequences are interesting because they all equal either 11 or 12. It's
Wow.
so weird how and I was like, okay, this
You're like
is,
looking up. Okay.
Wow, that's
yeah.
crazy.
That is a crazy story. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, I called my soul mother because she was like, Portia, I FaceTime her. I'm like, look at this. Look at this. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And it's not the first time. I mean, I found feathers for 6 days in a row in the same spot. There was a hawk feather, a new one.
Wow.
I was like, okay. Then another day, there was a wild turkey running across the street. I'm like, oh, it's a little too early for Thanksgiving, but okay. And then I think the turkey knew that I was trying to get a picture of it because it was kind of like it was darting across the street, didn't want me to get a picture of it. So I was like, okay. I've seen bald eagle. I've seen so many different things. I've found different things. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
But
If you're open to it, and
yeah.
that's what I always encourage people is just be open. Just
Mhm.
it's not a square box. It's very flowing, and just be aware. And people are very intimidated by silence, and silence can be your best friend when
Yes.
these things happen, because if you listen, you're going to hear something. I guarantee it. You're going to feel it. When we're go 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 go, we don't have feelings. We're not in our heart space. And our heart space is our truth space. And that's going to give you information. That's going to guide you, and that is absolutely going to give you information.
Yeah. Yeah, just ask. I mean, especially on the hard days, I ask a lot. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm at a crossroad with my life. Am I doing this right? Are these people who I want to work with, are they legit? I mean, I ask all the questions. And 9 times out of 10, I'll get some type of sign. Like last week, I think it was, I had just come in the house from an appointment, and the song on the TV was one of my mom's favorite songs, Summer Stroh by Huge Group. It was playing. And then I'm like, okay, Ma, all right. And then I looked at the clock, and the clock said 11:11. So then later on that day, I had to leave back out of the house. So I turned back on the TV, and the same song comes right back on, and the clock says 5:55. Said, okay, all right.
She's there.
She's there. And I think if people were more open to this possibility, even if you don't believe it, if you just take the time to understand, to sit in your silence, to think about it, I think that could be a paradigm shift of the concept of death, the concept of grief. It's always sad. We're never going to not miss that person.
Right.
But when, I like that you use transition, because that's what they're doing. They're transitioning back to where they came, in my belief.
Yeah.
So dead is just like, something. I don't like that terminology. It's too final.
Yep.
And there's that, we're infinite. So I
It's
think
rigid. It's very what I like to call like narrow-minded thinking. It's very narrow-minded. And I think, to your point, Nicole, I think we need to give ourselves permission to see things different. We say we want different, yet what's the saying? If I do what I always did, I'll get what I always got.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Same old.
And how do we expect to evolve our grief if we continue to put ourselves in the same bracket of experience?
Yes.
Give yourself the permission to see it differently. A lot of
Absolutely.
times, right? When we want a new job, when we're not moving, right? When we keep saying we want a new job, Well, when we get fired from that job, instead of feeling like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Say thank you, because that's what you prayed for. The door was opened and you clearly didn't want to move. So the universe had to light some fire on your pants to get you up.
And that's a true statement, because we have paths that we came to complete, and if you can't do it on your own, the universe is going to push you into the fire.
Yeah.
So
And
I
so many times, like I do exactly what you're saying. Is when I'm finding myself in a situation where I can't figure out where I'm going, I speak out and I speak to my ancestors, even beyond, for their grandparents and so on, and great grandparents, and ask them for some direction and show me some signs of where I should be going. And I'm always given some form of, especially during difficult times, of a pathway. So it's being able, like just what you're saying, to listen with an open mind, but when you see something, to realize where it's coming from. And it's okay. We don't, it doesn't have to be in writing, fellows, listening to this. The directions are open there, so we just need to keep our hearts open, and things come to you, and they always do.
Yeah. Just be open. I think the biggest takeaway that I want to share with your audience, if you take nothing else from what I've said, give yourself the permission to see your grief journey a little different. Instead of focusing on the loss, pivot to what has been gained. Remember who this person was, what they meant to you, honor them in some way, right? Pay it forward. And also just remember that there's a reason. There truly is a reason for everything. You may not be able to see it right then and there, but always remember that there is a reason for something. And this is truly for your transformation. Whatever this transition is always for your transformation, always for your benefit.
And just look what they have given to you during that time. And I'm not even going to say in a positive way. We learn sometimes our biggest lessons are when we go through the sometimes the hardest times.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times where we have to realize that, some of the greatest lessons that we can learn is through some of the things that they have taught us, good or bad.
right,
And
right.
it's for
Things a
our
lesson.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, everything is for your benefit. Grief has taught me how to be grateful for any and everything. It's taught me to reframe how I see any and everything and how to reinvent myself. It's also taught me how to be intentional with my time, with my energy, with people, with everything. It's also taught me to be more empathetic towards other people who I know are projecting their unresolved grief, because nobody's given them an avenue to talk about their loved one. And that's what I love doing. I love hearing people talk about who it is that they've experienced the transition with. Tell me about them. What was their name? What was their favorite color? Tell me. And they light up because nobody gives them the permission or the space to talk about it. The last thing grief taught me is how to forgive, because I had to forgive my dad in order for me to really be able to let myself be set free, because I was holding on to a bunch of anger with him, that how he didn't show up for me, but really he did. He taught me how to be present through his absence.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that is very powerful.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And we have to learn that, yes, just what you're saying, being grateful expands us, it doesn't deplete us. So if we can come through from things of gratitude instead of anger, because, anger is something that knocks us down, it decays us and brings out the worst in us. But if we can sit back and look at some of the greatness that comes from that. What did you learn? Where did you come from? How did you bring yourself back? All of these important questions can really change you into being a better person from all that. So learn to be grateful for whatever happens in your life instead of knocking yourself down or the other person down from what they've done.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, Glenda and Nicole, anger has been one of my best assets in my toolbox because anger is what spruced forth my audiobook. So if it's channeled right, anger can be used as a good thing if it's channeled right. Of
Exactly.
course, it can be destructive
Yeah.
if it doesn't have a proper outlet, but it can be used for so many good benefits. So
True.
many.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
all about mindset. It's the mindset.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and that's what most of everything is in our lives. So we learn to appreciate. As we're coming to the end, I want to ask you, what was the one thing with both of your parents? You talked to us about your mom and then your dad, of what really caused you to shift.
Ooh, that's a deep one. What really caused me to shift with both of my parents' transition. I'm going to start with my mom first because my mom's transition was the one that just broke me to pieces. I mean, when I tell y'all the anger was real, I could probably dent my own car with my fist
Mm.
by how angry I was. I was ready to have a boxing match in my front yard with God. Like, look, I don't care what you have to say. Let's duke this out. And even still, it ain't gonna help. What really helped me to shift, Glenda, with my mom's transition was remembering her motto. And my mom's motto for life is everybody has the ability to learn.
Mm.
My mom was an educator for 13 years. She taught special education. And when I remembered that phrase of everybody has the ability to learn, and my mom was just a ball of love,
Yeah.
why don't I give myself and other people around me the permission and the space to learn a different approach to grief and love them where they're at? So that's what really helped me with my mom.
Powerful.
With my dad, I had to be the bigger person because after my mom transitioned, there was like an epiphany I got that said, Portia, you need to go visit with your dad, make amends with him. Because I knew that his time was getting short. And so I opened myself up because I had closed myself off from him, Glenda, after just years of us butting heads. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. But I was the bigger person. And I'll never forget. I remember, I think it was actually shortly before our interview that we did when I went to go visit him. And we talked, even though his memory was here and there, he was still cracking his simple jokes about getting hit by a 2x4 and different things like that. That was him. But there was a miracle that happened on that December day. I like to call it the butterfly in December because butterflies symbolize transition and transformation.
Yeah.
And my father's stage name, being a musician and artist, his stage name was Butterfly. So that butterfly in December, I needed that. And even through his transition, there was some unpleasant things that transitioned at his funeral, if you want to call it. I'm proud of myself for remaining in a space of gratitude despite it all, and also still putting love first, still being present through the absence of so many. And so it for both of them, I would say what really keeps me in this space of transition and transformation and not a prisoner of the hurt is knowing that more people need somebody like me to grant them permission to talk about their loved one because they meant something. If nobody else gives them the space to talk about it, I will. Tell me about them because they meant something to you. You're holding on to that loss when really you don't have to. You need to be surrounded by the right people to
Yeah.
give you the space. to talk about them, because I'm a firm believer that when gratitude is present, nothing is truly lost. Their transition is for your transformation. The key to it is really finding those people that give you the space to be yourself, to talk about it, and not judge you and help you get there.
Wow. Well said.
Very well said. Thank you so much. That was very deep.
Wow. It was beautiful.
Thank
And
you both.
I am so grateful for you to come on and talk about this sometimes difficult subject matter, but so important for everybody to really realize that it's okay to have your feelings. It's okay to do what you need to do, and and it's okay to not do. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, before we finish off today, could you give us your lowdown now?
Of course. And one of the things that I always go back to when my mother passed away, and we talk about reframing or looking back on what did we learn. And there's always a lesson, there's always moments. But I remember when she passed away, I made a card for her, and it had pictures of her, it had pictures of us kids, had pictures of her as a little girl. And what I chose to say, and it's a little bit different from the actual quote, but it was a Winnie the Pooh quote. And it stated that I am so grateful that I had someone in my life that made saying goodbye so hard. And I thought that was very appropriate because we all feel that pain. But if we didn't feel the pain, we would have never had the love.
100%.
You are a clone, girl. I
Wow.
was looking at your pictures today. I'm like, my God, she's like the mother.
Wow, she looks just like you.
Just like, I know, clones, absolutely. So yeah, Portia, interesting and great conversation. Thank you.
And we honor your mother today as her second anniversary is coming up. We honor your love for her and for bringing you to us. We honor her for that.
Thank you.
I honor you for coming on with such a difficult conversation, but so important to everybody.
Anytime. My door is always open. I'm very open about grief. I don't mind talking about it. I can talk about it every day under the sun, because we need it.
Yes.
People need it. I want people to know it's okay that you're grieving. It's okay that your loved one meant so much to you and that nobody else is holding space for you. I will. Their transition is for your transformation. I'm Portia Booker, guys. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Portia, for joining us today. And thank you all for listening to this important day today. And as we honor Portia, and we also say to you, remember, if you know somebody who is grieving, somebody who's going through hard times, share this video to them, because the most important thing here is we want to honor you for going through this difficult time. We all go through it, but it doesn't have to be that you're going through it alone. And that's really what matters in life. Thank you all. Bye for now.